Okay guys, welcome back. For today's video I'm going to have a go at rewiring this engine bay. Hopefully neaten it up a little bit, hide some wires, get it all done properly inside of fuse boxes with some conduits, and at the end of it, hopefully I can hit the key and it will still go. Alright, let's get it started. First of all, I think I'm going to have to tidy off my workbench. There we go, much better. Alright, let's get some tools. Okay, we should be ready to go. So I've got everything that I'll need today pretty well laid out, pretty basic stuff. Multimeter, soldering iron and some solder, some heat shrink and tape, and some assorted wires, just pretty much to mimic the colour of the factory stuff to keep it simple. Makes it easy for diagnosing faults later on down the track as well. For wire size, I've basically just copied the size of the existing stuff just to keep it simple. Obviously don't go any smaller on any power or earth wires. You want to keep those at least the same size as the factory. That way you'll avoid any faults or shorts or melting anything later on down the track if it's under load. Okay, the wiring under here at the moment is a bit of a dog's breakfast. It's all over the place. As I said earlier, it was pretty much just a temporary wire up just to throw it all together and see if it would go. I'm far from an auto electrician. You don't really need to be, just so long as you can look up some wiring diagrams on the internet and take a bit of time to study them and read them and just go through and do one wire at a time and check it off as you go. It's really not that complicated. But yeah, this was just thrown together to see if it would go. So it's quite messy. It's really very basic. It doesn't need a whole lot of wiring to get it running. The injected 5 litre in the early Commodores, it's basically 2 relays. One's for the fuel pump and one's for the fuel injection. A couple of fuses, 3 or 4 fuses, one on each line to each relay. And they run through a couple of plugs for sensors down to the factory 5 litre wiring loom. There's only 2 plugs that you have to worry about. There's only a couple of wires off each one that you need. I'll also be lengthening a couple of wires to the battery. Some of these wires on the main harness were either a bit long or a bit short, so I'll tidy all those up, lengthen them, make them a good length so I can tuck them away up out of sight. Just basically neaten it right up and get rid of all this garbage so I can fit the washer bottle and everything back in so it'll look neat and tidy, and basically I won't have to touch it ever again. Okay, so I did most of this while I wasn't filming because it was just too hard to sort of film it and get it done at the same time. Just finding somewhere to stick the phone to keep a decent view. But I've basically cut everything out, all the old wiring. I've still got the conduit that run to the car to all the, say, computer, the security for the ECU, temp gauge, oil pressure gauge, all that sort of thing. The 2 plugs off the injected 5 litre loom, I've cut everything away from them and labelled what I've needed and stuck them aside. I've then got to clean up the fusible links and battery terminals, etc. The heavy earths and the positive cable. And while I've had it out the best I could with sort of limited light, I'll give that a bit of a clean up. It's still not perfect, but it's much better than it was. Yeah, I'm out of light and it's late at night, so I might pack it up and get back into it tomorrow. So now that I've got that side of the strut tower tidied up and pulled all the wires out of the way and can see what I'm working with, I've chucked the battery and the new washer bottle in just to get an idea of space so I can mock up where I'm going to fit this little fuse box. It looks like I'll have plenty of room to drop this guy down in the hole here. It'll sit plenty low enough to clear all the bonnet and overflow tubes and still give me plenty of room to get the wires out of the plugs off the injected 5 litre and run everything else behind the guard there underneath around to the battery. So might make a start. Okay, so here's the completed fuse box. I've drilled an extra hole in the base to allow 2 spots for wires to come out. Basically the setup I've run is I've got a couple of relays in there, the 2 existing relays that you saw before I tidied up, and also I've added in 2 power circuits with a fuse in them to run to the air fire loom. Basically the red wires coming in this end are the power feed for all the fuses. The 2 browns coming out this end are for the dash cluster for the temperature gauge and an oil pressure gauge. They'll run out the same side of the fuse box, as that's where the conduit will run up underneath the guard to be hidden away. The 2 black wires, obviously the earth's out the bottom. I'll find a nice earth point on the body that's nice and clean and also hidden away. The other wires at the other end, those green and reds. The 2 reds are the powered circuits for the air fire loom. The green wires are trigger wires for the relays, that both relays 1 and 2 in the box. I'll whip the lid off and give you a look. So as you can see, much neater setup than just having 2 relays either floating around or bolted to the inner guard. I've got them installed now. They've got 30 amp fuses in there. I'm not sure if they're too big. I'm going to have to double check the wiring diagram I followed when I first wired this up. That's just what I used at the time, so I imagine that's probably what the write-up said, but I am going to double check that because they seem like a rather big fuse. Okay, so the next step would be to jump in and fit the fuse box and terminate it all. I can't do that at the moment as I haven't got any steel here to make a bracket, and I want to fab up the bracket to see where I'm going to mount it. Make sure it's going to fit exactly how I want before I go ahead and cut all these wires and terminate them to the plugs. I don't want to have to be doing it again and pulling it out because the bracket's not quite right. So I think I might wrap up this video here. That way I can save the install of the bracket and the fab of the bracket and the termination of the wires for the fuse box, and hopefully the startup for the next video. So if you want to see if this is going to work and I've wired everything up properly, you'll have to come back and check out the next video. Hit the like and subscribe, that way when the video's up you'll get a notification so you won't miss out. And yeah, thanks for watching.